Why am I calling this The Scientist's Guide to the Revolution? What motivates me to see that as an apt turn of phrase to tackle what I see as a problem? So, and the problem is that, and I know this, and the data, I know it from personal experience, and the data explains it also. Scientists, on the whole, support the kind of politics that means never-ending consumption and turbocharged economics that's destroying the planet. They are liberals. They support the Democrats and the Labour Party, or whoever it would, the Labour Party in Australia and the Liberal Party in Canada. They're the kind of political parties they support. That's the kind of political philosophy they support. And that politics is destructive, right? The science is clear that you cannot have this kind of politics based on economic growth and never-ending consumption, and yet the majority of scientists support those political parties. Why do they do that? It's very difficult to understand. I've had, during my career, which was, I guess, 10, 15 years, 12, 15 years, I had many conversations with people where I brought this kind of thing up. It's like this kind of, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Tony Blair politics. It's just not sustainable, and it causes misery for the kind of people we should be concerned about. And I, 99% of the time, I just got bewildered looks from colleagues who would, even though I was backing up what I said with science, often kind of infer that I was crazy, right? So, yeah, we're offered this conservatism or this horrible right-wing populism or liberalism. And 60% of scientists, I would say, are liberals, maybe 20% are socialists, and the other 20% are probably conservative or libertarian. So there's only, I would say, 20% of academics who support the kind of politics that can ever rescue the planet and make it sustainable. So, I'd like to sort of outline from my own experience an anecdote that I think best explains what it is that describes the attitudes of academics in general into supporting that kind of middle-of-the-road, neoliberal, centrist politics that is equally as destructive as conservatism and right-wing populism. So when I was in science, there was a guy who came to visit our lab. He was trying to work out, he had some money and he wanted to know whether he might collaborate with us. So he was a guest at the lab for a couple of days. And the one evening he was there, we went out for a meal. There was me, my boss, and one other guy who was my equal. And these two guys from my lab, my boss and this other postdoc, we'd had so many conversations where I'd said, look, this politics, they're both Barack Obama devotees, and they're both American, saying, this kind of politics, it's ecologically destructive. And they'd just look at me like I was mad. And I was having this conversation over dinner. I brought it up. I was talking about, the planet's not sustainable. And all three of them, the two guys from my lab and this other guy who was visiting from Australia, were like going, no, this is just like, this is the reality. This is like, real politic. This is the way it is. And after a few minutes, the guy from Australia who was visiting, he just kind of went, I'm just going to stop this conversation now. I want to tell you, if I was at home with my mates in the pub what you're saying, I'd be saying exactly the same. I'd be telling them civilization is going to collapse. And the reason I've been pretending to disagree with you is because I don't want to make myself look like a bit of a weirdo in front of people who I might work with in the future. So he's afraid now. These arguments about the planet not being sustainable under the terms of economic growth and ever exacerbating consumption, these are backed up by hardcore scientific papers, understanding. But he was afraid to articulate his scientific understanding for fear of outing himself as a bit of a maverick and as a bit of a nutter in front of fellow scientists. And that, to me, is the most incredibly poignant story reflecting the culture of science at the moment. That if you actually stand up and say, this is crazy, these systems are crazy, this politics is crazy, and I mean, liberal politics who are supposed to be the good guys, if you say, no, we can't have this, this is going to destroy the planet, and the science backs that up, if you say that in a scientific arena, people will denounce you as being a bit weird and a bit crazy.